Before we begin, this is a true story about betrayal and psychological revenge. Names have been changed for legal reasons. Subscribe to witness how one woman's calculated revenge drove her identity thief to the edge of sanity. I'm Jade Sullivan, and until 6 months ago, I thought Emily Cooper was my best friend. Then I discovered she'd been stealing my life, piece by piece, photo by photo. But instead of confronting her, I decided to play a game, one that would make her question everything she thought was real. Like and subscribe for the most chilling revenge story you'll ever hear. What you're about to read will make you question every friendship you've ever had. The message arrived at 2 a.m., had an amazing time last night, Emily. You're even more beautiful in person than your pictures. I stared at my phone, confused. My name isn't Emily. But the photo attached to the message was definitely me, a sunset selfie I'd taken on my balcony last week. A selfie I'd never posted anywhere. Wrong person, I typed back. I've never met you. His response came instantly, very funny, After 3 dates, you're still playing hard to get? That's when he sent more photos. Me at a coffee shop I'd never been to. Me at a restaurant I didn't recognize. Except, something was off. The woman in these photos was wearing my face, my clothes, but her body language wasn't quite right. Like someone trying to imitate me. I zoomed in on the restaurant photo, and my blood ran cold. In the background, partially hidden behind a plant, was a face I knew better than my own, Emily Cooper. My best friend of 15 years. My hands shook as I scrolled through the stranger's photos. Each one showed me on dates I'd never been on, living a life I hadn't lived. I spent the next 3 hours diving deep into the digital rabbit hole. The stranger, Mark, wasn't the only one. There were dozens of men who thought they'd been dating Emily Sullivan, a hybrid identity my best friend had created using my photos and her presence. But it went deeper than dating profiles. Emily had created entire social media accounts mirroring my life. Same poses, same outfits, even the same captions on photos, posted just days after mine. She'd been shadowing me, recreating my life through her lens. What I found next left me speechless. Look who I ran into, read one of her posts. It showed her with my cousin Sarah at a cafe. Except I knew for a fact Sarah had been with me that day. Emily had orchestrated the same meetup a week later, wearing an identical outfit to what I'd worn. My phone buzzed, a text from Emily herself, "Brunch tomorrow? Have something exciting to tell you." 2 hearts. I stared at the message, remembering all our recent brunches. How she'd always asked to take photos of my outfits for style inspiration. How she'd questioned me about my daily routine, my favorite places, my social circles. She hadn't been being supportive. She'd been taking notes. Opening my laptop, I started digging deeper. Emily's digital footprint wasn't just an imitation, it was an invasion. She had systematically recreated every aspect of my life. My promotion at work. A week later, she suddenly had the same job title at a rival company. My new apartment? She'd moved into a similar building, decorated identically to mine. Even my volunteer work at the local animal shelter had suddenly become her passion project. But the most chilling discovery came when I checked my email's login history. What I found next would turn this into a nightmare. Someone had been accessing my personal email for months. The IP address traced back to Emily's apartment. She hadn't just been copying my life, she'd been reading it, studying it, learning every detail she could use. That's when I found the document. A spreadsheet, accidentally shared with my email during one of her late-night stalking sessions. Title, Jade's Life Implementation Plan. Inside were detailed notes about everything, my mannerisms, my speech patterns, my relationships. She'd been methodically studying me like someone preparing to step into my role. At the bottom was a single line that made my blood freeze: Phase 2 begins next month, full integration into Target's Life Complete. Phase 2 wasn't just about copying my life, it was about replacing me in it. Emily had mapped out every relationship I had, every connection, every friendship. She'd been slowly positioning herself to become the better version of me. The spreadsheet was meticulous, detailing everything from my mother's favorite tea brand to the name of my first pet. She'd been collecting these intimate details, preparing to step into my life as if she'd lived it herself. But the most disturbing part was the timeline tab. Emily had labeled her strategy in phases. Build parallel life structure already complete. She'd mirrored my apartment, job, and daily routines. Begin replacing target in social circles currently in progress. She'd been hosting dinner parties, organizing group events, becoming the reliable version of me. Create situations that damage target's credibility, scheduled to begin next month. The details made my stomach turn. Complete social transition, the final phase. Her ultimate goal. The last tab was labeled Elimination Strategy. My hands trembled as I opened it, expecting to find something sinister. Instead, I found something worse, a detailed plan to systematically destroy my reputation, my relationships, and my career. She wasn't planning to kill me. She was planning to erase me. Scrolling through her notes, I found today's date circled in red. Next to it was a single entry, begin phase 2B, initiate crisis scenario. My phone buzzed with a group text from our mutual friends. Jade, Emily told us what's been going on. We're here for you. You don't have to pretend anymore. Another message, we had no idea about your problems. Emily showed us the evidence. Please get help. The trap she set would destroy everything I had. My heart racing, I opened Instagram to find concerned comments flooding my latest posts. Emily had apparently been telling people I was unwell, sharing doctored screenshots of conversations I'd never had, building a narrative of me being unstable. She'd even created fake therapy appointments in my name, complete with forged mental health records, all while presenting herself as the concerned, stable friend who was just trying to help. The final piece clicked into place when my boss called. Jade, take all the time you need. Emily showed us the medical records. Your position will be here when you're better. In just one day, she'd begun unraveling my entire life. Everyone thought I was having a mental breakdown, and the only person they trusted to tell them the truth about me was Emily. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She didn't know that I'd discovered her plan. And I was about to show her what a real psychological game looked like. First rule of psychological warfare, never let your target know they're being targeted. So when Emily texted again about brunch, I replied with my usual enthusiasm. Can't wait. Same place as always? 2 hearts. But I'd already set my plan in motion. You see, Emily hadn't just been studying me, I'd been studying her. Every detail she'd collected about my life had revealed something crucial about hers. Her desperate need to become me stemmed from a pathological desire for control and validation. What I did next would shake her to her core. I started with something subtle. A photo appeared on my Instagram, me at an exclusive restaurant Emily had been dying to visit. The catch? The restaurant didn't exist. I'd created it using deep fake technology and careful Photoshop. Within hours, Emily had coincidentally posted about getting a reservation at the same place. Exactly as I'd predicted. When she arrived at the fake address tomorrow night, dressed identically to my photo, she'd find an abandoned building. The first seed of doubt planted. But that was just the beginning. Because while Emily had been building a fake version of my life, I'd been creating something far more intricate, a reality that would slowly drive her insane. See you tomorrow. I texted back, smiling as I finalized the details of what would become her worst nightmare. At brunch the next morning, I watched Emily carefully. She was wearing a dress identical to one I'd worn last week, her hair styled exactly like mine. But something was off, she seemed distracted, checking her phone repeatedly. Everything okay? I asked innocently, knowing she was probably trying to figure out why she couldn't find the fake restaurant from my post. Oh, just work stuff, she lied, her eye twitching slightly. First crack in her perfect facade. Subscribe now because what happened next would leave her questioning everything. Phase 1 of my plan was simple, make her doubt her own research. Every detail she'd collected about my life would slowly become unreliable. The coffee shop I'd told her I visited every morning? I'd arranged for it to close for renovations when she showed up. My regular yoga class? Mysteriously canceled only on days she tried to attend. Small things. Subtle things. Things that would make her question her meticulous notes. By the way, I mentioned casually, remember that story I told you about my first kiss? I totally got it wrong. It wasn't under the bleachers, that was someone else's story I mixed up with mine. I watched her hand twitch toward her phone, knowing she'd have to update her spreadsheet. But which version was real? The one I'd told her before, or this one? The beauty of it? She couldn't ask without revealing she'd been collecting these details. The trap I set next would make her question her own mind. Oh, and those photos you took of my apartment for interior design inspiration? I continued, stirring my coffee. I'm completely redecorating. Going for a totally different vibe. Emily's spoon clattered against her cup. I knew she'd just spent thousands copying my exact aesthetic. Really? Her voice was strained. But you loved that style. Did I? Sometimes I wonder if I ever really liked it, or if I was just copying someone else. I met her eyes deliberately. You know how that is, right? When you're not sure if something is genuinely you or just an imitation? The mind games I played next would break her perfect facade. Over the next hour, I casually mentioned several corrections to stories she documented about my life. Each one carefully chosen to invalidate her research. With every revision, I watched her confidence crack a little more. Then I deployed my masterstroke. Hey, did you ever get into that new restaurant? The one from my Instagram? I asked innocently. What restaurant? She tried to hide her panic, but I saw her hands shaking. You know, the one I posted about? Strange though, when I went back to show someone, the post was gone. And I can't seem to find the place anymore. Maybe I dreamed it? Emily's face went pale. I knew she'd spend hours trying to find that non-existent restaurant, probably even made reservations using fake confirmation emails I'd arranged to be sent to her. But I saw the post, she stammered. I saw the photos. Did you? I tilted my head, the picture of innocent confusion. That's weird. Hey, maybe I'm the one losing it. I laughed lightly. Speaking of which, thanks for being so concerned about my mental health. Her coffee cup froze halfway to her mouth. What? Oh, everyone's been texting me about how worried you are. Sweet of you to care. I kept my tone casual, but I saw panic flash across her face. Though it's funny, my therapist Dr. Harrison says she's never heard of the doctor whose name is on those records people keep mentioning. The next part of my plan would shake her perfect world. Emily's carefully constructed plan was based on convincing everyone I was unstable. But now I was calmly acknowledging the rumors, seeming completely rational, while subtly suggesting that perhaps someone else was confused about reality. Actually, I continued, pulling out my phone, want to see something strange? These photos people say you showed them of me having a breakdown? Watch what happens when I run them through this new authentication app. Her face went from pale to ashen as I pulled up software designed to detect digital manipulation. Isn't technology amazing? I smiled. How it can reveal what's real and what's fabricated. The trap I set next would destroy her perfect plan. You know what's really weird? I continued, watching her hands shake as she reached for her water. Someone's been accessing my email account from an IP address in your building. My IT friend traced it. Crazy, right? Almost like someone's been studying my life. Emily knocked over her water glass. That's impossible. Maybe you have a stalker? Maybe, I agreed softly. Someone who wants to become me. Can you imagine someone that unstable? The psychological warfare I unleashed next would break her. I pulled out a folder. Actually, I've been gathering some concerning evidence. Photos of someone following me, recreating my life, even dressing like me. The police said it shows signs of severe psychological issues. They're very worried about this person's mental state. Emily's face was a mask of terror now. Everything she'd planned to use against me, the claims of mental instability, the concerned friends, the documented evidence, I was now turning back on her. In fact, I continued, they think this person might be having a complete dissociative break from reality. Creating elaborate spreadsheets, planning to replace someone else in their own life. I met her eyes. Sounds pretty unhinged, doesn't it? She stood up so abruptly her chair fell backward. Several people turned to stare. I have to go, she whispered. Of course, I smiled. Oh, and Emily? Check your email when you get home. You accidentally shared a very interesting document with me. Emily practically ran from the restaurant, leaving her phone behind in her panic. A phone I'd arranged to have cloned days ago. As she disappeared around the corner, I opened my laptop and began phase 3. Time to give Emily a taste of her own medicine, I murmured, accessing her email account, not through hacking, but using the password she'd conveniently saved in my computer during one of her friendly visits. The revenge I took next would make her question everything she thought was real. First, I sent emails from her account to everyone she'd contacted about my supposed mental health issues. The messages expressed increasing paranoia, describing how she was seeing versions of herself everywhere, how she couldn't tell what was real anymore. Then, using her phone's backup, I posted on her social media, subtle things at first. Photos of empty rooms with captions like "she's watching me" and "which version is real?" But the masterstroke came when I activated the hidden cameras I'd installed in her apartment building's public areas. You see, while Emily had been studying my life, I'd been preparing to show her exactly what it feels like to be stalked. Her phone buzzed with an anonymous text, "Nice try, Emily. But I'm the real one. You're just a copy." Attached was a photo of her entering her apartment, taken just minutes ago. Emily's unraveling was swift and spectacular. She started seeing me everywhere, because I'd arranged it. Hired lookalikes to pass her on the street. Photoshopped images of me in the background of her recent photos. Her social media became increasingly erratic. Someone's been in my apartment. Everything's slightly moved. The photos on my wall keep changing. Am I the real Emily? Or am I the copy? What happened next would make her lose touch with reality. I watched through the security cameras as she returned home, frantically checking her Jade's Life implementation plan spreadsheet. But the document had been subtly altered, dates changed, details switched, entire sections corrupted. Everything she'd so carefully documented was now unreliable. Then came my favorite part, I had her own tactics used against her. Friends started receiving concerned messages about Emily's mental state from her own email account. Messages she had no memory of sending. "Emily's been acting strange," they'd whisper. "Did you see those posts about thinking she's being replaced?" "She told me she's the real Jade," others would say. "I'm really worried about her." The final touch? I sent her a simple email from an anonymous account. "Dear copy, did you really think you could become me? I've been watching you try to steal my life. But here's the thing, I'm the original. You're just a failed imitation. The real Emily." Emily's response was more dramatic than I'd anticipated. She showed up at work dressed exactly like me, insisting she was the real Jade Sullivan. When her colleagues tried to calm her down, she became hysterical, screaming about stolen identities and copies. Security footage showed her being escorted out, clutching her spreadsheets and muttering about proving she's real. The justice I served next would change everything. That's when I implemented the final phase of my plan. I contacted everyone she'd previously warned about my mental health issues, sharing the evidence I'd gathered, her detailed plans to steal my identity, the forged documents, the fake medical records. But I didn't present it vengefully. Instead, I appeared concerned, worried about my dear friend's psychological state. "I'm so worried about Emily," I told our friend group, my voice trembling with perfectly practiced concern. "She seems to believe she's me. She's been living this elaborate fantasy, copying my life. The police say it's a severe case of identity obsession." The same friends who'd once doubted my stability now looked at Emily with a mixture of pity and fear. Her carefully constructed narrative had completely backfired. Then came the surveillance footage I'd gathered showing her following me, photographing me, studying my movements. The evidence was overwhelming. It happened at our mutual friend Sarah's engagement party. Emily arrived wearing an exact copy of my dress, which wasn't surprising, since I'd deliberately leaked false information about what I'd be wearing. What she didn't expect was for me to show up in something completely different, making her look like the obsessed copycat she was. The public meltdown that followed would be unforgettable. "But you're supposed to be wearing this," she screamed, pointing at her dress. "I saw the text. I saw the photos." The room fell silent. Everyone watched as Emily's carefully maintained facade crumbled completely. "I'm the real one," she insisted, pulling out her phone to show her spreadsheets. "Look! I documented everything. Every detail, every moment. I became her better than she ever was." The horror on our friends' faces was genuine. The spreadsheets she thought would prove her sanity only confirmed her obsession. "Emily," I said softly, playing the concerned friend perfectly, "I think you need help. The kind of help you claimed I needed." That's when she made her final, fatal mistake. She lunged at me, screaming about how she was the real Jade and I was the copy trying to replace her. As security led her away, I made sure everyone saw the tears in my eyes. "I just don't understand," I whispered. "She was my best friend. They took her to the same psychiatric facility where she tried to have me committed." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The doctors found her extensive documentation of my life, the spreadsheets, the photographs, the detailed plans, all proving her obsessive descent into delusion. Her phone and laptop revealed everything: hundreds of photos of me, recordings of my conversations, detailed notes about my mannerisms. The police called it one of the most comprehensive cases of identity obsession they'd ever seen. The truth that emerged would stun everyone. During her evaluation, more disturbing details emerged. Emily had done this before, in 3 other cities, with 3 other women. Each time, she'd gotten closer to becoming her target before being discovered. I was just the first one to fight back. "How did you know?" our friend Sarah asked me later. "How did you realize what she was doing?" I showed her the original message from Mark, the dating app guy. "Pure luck," I said. But once I knew, I couldn't just confront her. She would have twisted it, made me look crazy. I had to let her prove her obsession to everyone. The final twist? The psychiatric hospital found Emily wasn't even her real name. Her entire identity was a construction, built from pieces of lives she tried to steal. 6 months later, I sat in the courtroom as Emily, whose real name turned out to be Rebecca Martinez, was sentenced. Not just for identity theft and stalking, but for a pattern of psychological manipulation that had left a trail of traumatized victims across the country. The other women she'd targeted came forward. Each story was similar: a seemingly perfect friend who slowly began absorbing their identity, then trying to replace them. But none had gathered the evidence to prove it like I had. The legacy of this story would protect others. Today, I run a support group for victims of identity theft and psychological manipulation. We teach people the warning signs, how to protect themselves, how to fight back legally and safely. Emily writes to me sometimes, still claiming she could have been a better me than I ever was. The letters go straight to my lawyer. The friends who once doubted my sanity? They've become fierce advocates for believing victims. Sarah even helped me create a website that helps people document evidence of psychological abuse. The final truth about friendship and betrayal. Last week, I received a friend request from someone who seemed perfect, too perfect. Their profile mirrored mine in subtle ways. But now I know the signs. Now we all do. Because sometimes the most dangerous predators aren't strangers. They're the friends who want to become you. And sometimes the best revenge isn't confrontation. It's letting them destroy themselves with their own obsession. If this true story opened your eyes, like and subscribe. Your best friend might not be who they claim to be, and your story could help others recognize the signs before it's too late.